Hello and welcome back to Trashbug Toy Reviews. Today we have the first special that I'm doing on this channel. It is for the lovely holiday of Valentine's Day, and we are taking a look at my favorite boy from the Transformers universe, Starscream, as he appeared in the 2007 movie Transformers. I wanted to do something a little different for Valentine's Day. You know, I planned on doing specials from the beginning, but it's just been an issue of timing for me, so I really hope you guys enjoy this. It's just one of my standard reviews, but just with an added flair because it's my favorite boy in the world, and of course, it is one of my favorite holidays. So let's get right into a little bit of the history of Starscream before we start. So Starscream has been in Transformers since the very beginning, and he is one of the few Transformers that has appeared in pretty much every single continuity, you know, except for Megatron and Optimus, which are also pretty much in everything. Starscream has been a classic figure for a long time, but I grew up with him actually with the Armada series, which was not a very good cartoon, but it was what introduced us to a little bit more of the complex nature with the character, and you know, it's been carried over a little bit, but for the most part, Armada's kind of been its own thing. It's given us a little bit more of the emo version of Starscream, I guess is the best way to put it. It's a great time. Today, we're looking at the version that appeared on the big screen. This is the 2007 version. That design did deviate a lot from his earlier incarnation though. Again, just going back from Armada, when I saw his version on the big screen, I was like, ooh, that is very different. But even just looking at all of his incarnations, he's always been a jet, obviously. This version gives him that more like triangular shape. Everyone always calls him a Dorito, which is unfortunately very fitting, but I really like the design. As I've mentioned, I am quite a big fan of the Bayverse Transformers. I like the way that a lot of them do look a little bit more on the monstrous side as opposed to being basic humanoids. With the exception of the Autobots, most of them are pretty humanoid, but I like the designs being a little bit more out there. It makes them feel a lot more alien. It makes them feel a little bit more interesting in my opinion. Starscream is absolutely no exception, and man, do I love this version of the figure too. I could not wait to get my hands on this guy, and I'm really happy I got him in time to put this together. So let's get into the figure. For those coming back to the channel, or for those new here, I look at figures in three main categories. I look at the sculpt and detail, the paint and color applications, and finally the articulation or posing. With these Studio Series figures, I am of course looking at the articulation because that is one of the big points with these guys, is they are supposed to be a little bit more articulated, a little bit more of a collector's item, where you can get them into really neat poses and it doesn't necessarily compromise the look of the figure. So let's hop right into the first section here with the sculpt and detail. So just starting here with the detail and sculpt, I mean, what can I even say? This guy is absolutely beautiful. Looking at pictures of his design in the movie, you know, they're never going to get 100% just because of how complicated the CGI work in that film was, but this guy is just incredible. You have his long, lanky arms, and unlike the original figure that came out at the time, he actually has hands instead of just guns. I love that. I do wish that his fingers were sculpted out a little bit better. Just the fact that the two, like, thumbs, I guess? Thumb and pinky? I don't even know what Starscream's got going on here with his hands, but they're both sculpted in there as part of the hand, so it kind of makes him look like he just has three fingers, even though he does have thumbs. But cool nonetheless. You can see here on his arm, he's got his little, like, shield thingy going on here that just looks beautiful. You have little wires and everything sculpted out in there. Coming up here to his arms, he has again those like wires going on, just like everything is beautiful on this guy. You can see here his chest looks beautiful with the cockpit folded down. He has his little side pieces here. Just everything looks incredible. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but sculpt and detail on this guy is unbelievable. Like, I could not be happier. Taking a look here at his back though, you can see there is a lot of kibble going on, especially just the way that the wings fold up. But the amount of details that they added underneath it, it hides a little bit of it well. And of course, Starscream did have this kind of backpack, but looking at him from the side here, they've maintained giving him this very thin build while still being very top heavy and bulky at the top. So I quite appreciate it, and I really don't think that the backpack detracts from anything. It just is very clearly like a bunch of crap folded up in it, which is fine, whatever. But they've done really well hiding all the mechanical bits as far as for the transformation, and bringing out even more of what really makes Starscream shine from the films. You can see here you can do so much with the arms too, and just every position that you get them in, he looks good. You have a couple gaps in here in the robot mode that not bad, but they are noticeable, so it is worth considering if you are looking at picking this guy up. And looking here at the back, look at that booty! Got the little nose cone poking out and everything. He looks very good. I mean, what else can I say about Starscream? I love this figure so much. I am going to give him a 4 though, only because I think that this is fantastic. It's gorgeous, but he does have these really big, obvious like holes in his little legs here from where the wings transform. He does have this gapping, you know, it's as much detail as they can get into a Studio Series figure. I really like it, but I do just have to be honest in that I feel like if they were to take another look at this figure today, I think just like with the old movie Barricade, I think that they'd be able to do it justice in a real way. And not that there is anything wrong with this, but just you can see how far the Studio Series figures have come, and I feel like Starscream's no exception. I think the original version was beautiful, but I just think that there were a couple points they could pick up on, and I hope they reevaluate him someday and we get like a master version of this. So again, a 4 for the sculpt and detail. As far as the color and paint applications go, this is kind of a mixed bag because they use this dark gray, which looks really, really good. And it helps hide the fact that there is a lot of this plasticky gray, which, though fairly accurate to the F-22 in real life, does definitely look like plastic on this figure. The screen looks really good on the cockpit. It's a nice, beautiful yellow. The face looks really good too. It looks accurate to the actual character in the movie. But again, it's just that where the light gray is, it does have that very plasticky feel to it. You have the wings up here painted. You can't see in this mode as well, but just flipping down the wings here a little bit for you to see. He does have his insignia painted on there, as well as the, I believe that's just the US Air Force symbol. Very cool, very well done. The paint applications on his arm are absolutely gorgeous though, just seeing this golden bit here, the silver paint down here. It's like wherever they put in the extra work for the paint work, it just came out incredible. But it's counterbalanced by this very plasticky looking gray. So I am going to give him a 3 in this category. The parts that are done well are done very well, but again, it's just, I feel like the Studio Series has come pretty far from when they actually put this guy out, and I feel like a modern version, kind of like what we just got with the Revenge of the Fallen Sideswipe, where the older version had this very, very toy-looking plasticky look to it. All they had to do was redo the color, and that figure is absolutely beautiful with the color applications. So once again, this older Studio Series Starscream is taking home a 3. Finally onto the articulation, and I'm going to be honest with you, just like with the color and paint applications, this Starscream is a little bit of a mixed bag. He has undeniably some of the best articulation in his arms out of any of the Studio Series figures. He has multiple joints, and that just lends itself to be reflective of how Starscream is in the movie. He's got these kind of noodly arms. The hands are very nicely articulated, although I do really wish that we got some finger articulation. I know that is a big ask with a figure of this size. You know, even at the Voyager scale, the hands are fairly small, and the fingers are even smaller. One of the things that I like about Starscream, but definitely makes it a little harder to add in the additional articulation. Up here at the shoulder though, you can see you can go up and down. There is a swivel here, and what I really like about this swivel is that you can mess around with it a bit to get his shoulders into some really incredible poses. And it increases the range of motion of the arms dramatically. It allows you to do a lot with this guy. You have hinges going all the way down the arm up until the hand with the ball joint. Looking at the head, it just has a swivel back and forth, does not go up or down. Again, part of that I do suspect is just the nature of Starscream's head. It is this very, very awkward shape. I love it, but I can see why they would have some trouble. But again, a modern version of this figure, I feel like you could just pop on a ball joint. The waist has nothing as far as swivels, any kind of crunch or anything like that. And in fact, the whole body, other than the shoulders here, really has nothing going on for articulation. He's a very, very big chunk of plastic Dorito that you just can't do much with. You can do so much with the limbs, it feels like it's very strange that you can't do anything with the body. Although, once again, Starscream's design, I can see why it'd be hard to incorporate any kind of movement. You have the entire cockpit of the F-22 going down his chest. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? Going down here to his hips though, you can see you have a swivel and a hinge. Going down to his knees, you have more hinge joints, more swivels. And then his feet, you can move the toes on the front. You can't do anything on the back. You can fold these little wheelie bits as they're part of the landing gear for Starscream, but it doesn't look very good because you can only move them to the side, and that doesn't make any sense. I like the fact that you can move the toes here because when you want to get him into a flying pose, it really lends itself to look like he's in motion in the air. You can really get some realistic looks out of that, and I like that a lot. The biggest problem I have is just the articulation with the legs. It feels like you should be able to do more with them. It's very strange that it feels like there's a lot of motion in directions that don't quite make sense, but then you don't have any kind of swivel at the feet here, any kind of hinge, nothing that really lends itself to being able to pose his toes a little bit better. You got nothing like that on the hips either, so you can't really move him out. But with the transformation, you can get his legs to move a little bit because, of course, these hips kind of move in and out. So you can move them back a little bit. Problem is that in most positions, it looks kind of awkward. So you can do a pose from the side and really get it to work, but from the front, it looks kind of strange because it's very obvious. It's a point of articulation only allowed by the transformation. So I quite like the articulation, but I do feel like it has come a long way with the studio series since this guy. I'm going to give him a 2. I really love this guy, and some of the articulation, like at the arms and at the feet, is really, really good, but it's just so limited in some places. You can't have him look up and down. You can't twist him at all. Even his leggies are, you know, you can do a lot with what they gave you, but it's just there's so many places where you want to move it and you feel like you should, but there's no articulation there. And it makes it a little bit more restricted than I think that this guy should be. You can do a lot with the posing, don't get me wrong, but it would be incredible to see what a Starscream from the 2007 movie would look like if they made him now. I think this guy's great, but it's just, they've come such a long way as far as the articulation. So once again, I feel kind of bad doing this to my boy, but I am giving him a 2. Last but not least, we're looking at the accessories that this guy comes with. Starscream comes with his little rocket launcher, which is so cool. I love how accurate it looks. Again, I got the original figure when this came out in 2007. I don't have it anymore. I actually sent that over to my best friend Henry. But this original version of the rocket launcher is just so accurate compared to what they did on the previous figure, where they just kind of turned his arms into giant cannons. It did not look anything like how Starscream looked like in the movie. It's so good to finally get a realistic missile launcher like what he had in the movie. You can attach it onto his hand by folding his hand up here and then just popping it right onto the arm when those holes open up. Super cool. You're going to see a ton of pictures in here as well, but he just looks so badass with this rocket launcher. It looks like it just popped out of his arm, just like in the movie. As with the Revenge of the Fallen, when he kind of has it held down, you can do that, but the problem again just comes down to the articulation issues. You can't move it to the side at all, so you can't do any of that cool twisting thing that he liked to do in the movie. But what you do have is really fantastic. I'm very happy with the missile launcher design. I'm happy that they designed it in a way where it can be popped onto multiple spots as well. Taking a look here, for instance, he has these ports on the back of his arm, so if you prefer to keep the hand out but still want the rocket launcher, you can do something like this. And again, not accurate to the movie, but looks super cool and gives you some more options if you do want to have his hands out while you're posing him. You can do this on both arms as well, though I don't really need to show you that. You can just see the ports available on there. And for weapon storage, you have this little port in the back if you want to just put it aside. Just plugs right in there, blends in just fine, and he has a couple of those pokey arms coming out the back. You also get this backdrop that I'm of course filming in front of. It has a ton of information, and interestingly enough, I don't know if it's just because I got the Japanese version of this figure, but it does have the Decepticon logo on it, and you'll notice in most of the modern releases, the backdrops have the Autobot logo regardless of what figure it has. So I thought that was fantastic. I like having a backdrop that now I can put with the Decepticons exclusively. I don't know if they discontinued that at some point, or again, if that was just a Japan exclusive thing. Either way, I think it's super cool. I'm not going to be adding or subtracting any points for these accessories. The weapon is really nice, but again, it's pretty simple. It's exactly what you'd expect with a Starscream figure. I'm happy it looks good, but it's not like insane by any stretch. And the backdrop, again, really happy that they have it, but most of these are probably just going to go in a box and sit in my closet for forever. So just to go through some quick size comparisons, let's take a look at him next to some of his fellow Decepticons. Here he is next to Soundwave, Grindor, and of course, Mr. Megatron from the 2007 movie. And just finally, some Autobots. Here he is next to Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, and these are both of the 15th anniversary set versions. You can see as far as sizing is concerned, he scales really well against his fellow Decepticons and the Autobots. The only thing I'm going to say is that his vehicle mode is definitely a little undersized. I think that's fine considering it's still a large vehicle and it is going to be hard to get a full-scale F-22 in here. F-22 jets are very big in real life, so I think they did great with it. It is just worth noting. And now let's transform our boy.
Yesterday I lost the battle, trying at all costs, oh, to keep you, baby. Oh, to keep you, baby. Now I hurt so bad. All I feel is sad that I lost you, baby. Oh, I lost you, baby. I said goodbye with tears inside, calling out your name as you shut the door behind you. And now I wonder, why won't you come back? Love me, hold me, need me, like the way you used to do, when it was just me and you. Don't go, I need you, I'll never mislead you. Give this love another chance. Take my hand and let me have this dance. Tomorrow is another day, so sit around and waste away without you, baby. Oh, without you, baby. My life used to be in blue, now it's mostly filled with gloom. I miss you, baby. Yeah, I miss you, baby. I said goodbye with tears inside, calling out your name as you shut the door behind you. And now I wonder, why won't you come back? Love me, hold me, need me, like the way you used to do, when it was just me and you. Don't go, I need you, I'll never mislead you. Give this love another chance. Take my hand and let me have this dance.
Now that we have him in vehicle mode, I'm gonna just take a once over for our 3 core categories again. Just in terms of sculpt and detail, this figure looks amazing. If you look at a diagram of an F-22, any pictures of them in the air, he looks pretty much spot on the top. You know, he does have a little bit of the ridging that is blended in a little bit more in the actual vehicle. Obviously, Starscream has the Decepticon logo on him, which a real F-22 is not gonna have, but man does it look cool on him. The nose is this little blunted piece that, albeit realistic, it does look a lot more like a toy, like with that just hunk of plastic on there. You can see inside the cockpit, everything looks awesome in there. And then just going back to the back of the figure, again, everything looks nice and smooth. One of my biggest complaints with Starscream figures of this depiction is that the vehicle modes rarely look good, especially for a vehicle as sleek as an F-22. You really want that to look nice in the vehicle mode too. You know, I typically am keeping this figure in robot mode, but you just want the option and flexibility and you don't want it to compromise anything when you turn it into this vehicle mode. Looking here at the underside, he is just absolutely filled to the brim with kibble, but looking at it from the side, it is not nearly as bad as a lot of the other figures. taking a look at this compared to older figures and even the Masterpiece version of this figure, I have to say that the Studio Series figure does the kibble management the best, in my opinion. It isn't perfect, but it is a lot smoother. From the top, you can barely tell what's going on. From the bottom, it looks a little bit more chaotic, but it really is a lot smoother than you see on even the original figure that came out for this guy, but almost anything that's been released since doesn't really come close to this Studio Series look. Looking here at the weapon, of course, that just plugs in there. Super cool, not realistic for an F-22, but just nice that we got some really nice weapon storage. Alternatively, you can also take it off and plug it into one of the ports here to just have it as a little rocket launcher on the side, which is cool. I quite like the flexibility that you get with this weapon. You know, it pretty much matches exactly what we see in the movie, but you have different places you can put it. Even in vehicle mode, it can be active or inactive. Totally up to what you want to do, what you think looks best on the figure. You can see here you also have these wheels. They can be plugged in. And he is just super smooth and sleek looking. I reiterate that I think this Studio Series figure is the best one I've seen so far. Masterpiece version looks awesome in robot mode, but looking at the vehicle mode, it's just not great kibble management. It's really interesting to me that they managed to do it best with this one. Looking at the color and paint application, I will say that though the color is fairly accurate to an F-22, it of course has this very plasticky look to it. It's not perfect, definitely looks like a toy, but it's not the worst either. Decals are nicely done, overwhelming, they blend in nicely and again look very natural. I like the color that they went with the glass, again it's very realistic to an actual F-22. It's good looking, it's just the color is not great, it's definitely a little bit more of a plasticky feel. But just again referencing the other figures, this is probably the best one that I've seen of all of them with the color applications. It's not nearly as plasticky looking as the Revenge of the Fallen figure looks. I really want to get that figure, but it does look a lot more like a toy. There is a reason that I decided to get this original version first. Aside from just liking the 2007 movie as much as I do. When it comes to the articulation and the posing, there isn't really much to say. It is a vehicle. You can't articulate it at all. There's not much that you have going on there. So looks good, but I'm just completely going to glance over that for the vehicle mode. Anyways, let's wrap this up. So to just wrap up this review, Starscream is taking home a 4, a 3, and a 2 in his core categories, and I am also going to give him 1 extra point to bring his grand total to 10 just because of how beautiful the vehicle mode is. It's even nicer looking in my opinion than the Masterpiece version, and that is really saying something considering these are at a much smaller scale and a much smaller budget. The engineering is just very well done, and I'm happy that they managed to capture his robot look and his beautiful, beautiful F-22 vehicle mode. With that total though, it's going to bring us to a 3.3, which as you know, I always round, and it is going to give us a solid 3 for this guy. I wish he was higher, but just being honest with the reviews, I love this figure, love the character, but I just think they could do a lot better now. The engineering has gotten significantly better since this guy came out way back when, and they did a good job. It's not lackluster by any stretch, but it's just seeing how much they've improved that it's really in comparison not quite as good. I'm really excited to see if they do redo this 2007 Starscream. I really hope so. I wouldn't mind having 2 in my collection. Of course, if I just threw this guy in vehicle mode, I would not be complaining. Again, I'm giving him an extra point because it's beautifully done. But I think this is a fair score. I love this figure. I highly recommend Starscream to anybody. If you are looking for a Starscream that's as articulated as possible, this is probably your best bet other than the Masterpiece version, but this definitely has its flaws as well. I think a lot of people like the Revenge of the Fallen version for the tattoos, but I think that this one is a slightly more realistic version. I just hope we do get a newer version at some point. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me for my review of the Studio Series 06 Starscream, as he appeared in the 2007 Transformers live-action movie. Next time we're going to be taking a look at the Godzilla Store exclusive Varan Bandai figure. This is a figure that I never thought we were going to get in a million years. It's been forever since we've gotten a really good Varan figure, and we have never gotten a really good Bandai figure of Varan in general. We've never even gotten him in the 6-inch scale for these tagged vinyl figures. Something I never thought would happen, and I am so excited that I get to take a look at that with you guys next time. If you are interested in checking me out across the web, I have an Instagram, a Trashbug Toys. I also have a Twitter, a Trashbug, and of course, me and Henry do monster movies. We are covering our Transformers movies in May, I believe? March? It's coming up soon, but we are going to be talking about these guys, so definitely check out our series. It came from Monster Movie Podcast if you are interested in checking it out. We cover all kinds of other giant monsters too, but if you're interested solely in Transformers, you are unfortunately going to have to wait a couple of months. Anyways, thank you guys so much again, and take care.